Sorry, Arnold.
How was your day today?
It was a grand day. Seriously, it was a
Yes,
really good day. So, for the both of you, y'all are actually midway into your day right now.
correct. Yes. So it is noon in just about a minute here, and I've already had a great meeting this morning. I do see my friend Robert has also joined. He and I'll just let him know that we'll be on in just about a minute here. Excellent. Okay, well, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. It is a delight to have these wonderful leaders join us today. I'd like to first introduce you to Caroline. Caroline and I connected on LinkedIn a few years back and then on Facebook as well. And it is such an honor to have her on today. It is actually almost midnight for her, and she has stayed way past. You know what? I don't think she does need the beauty sleep because she is as gorgeous as ever. Caroline had actually had me on her show, the Speak Up series, which was a few years back, and we were talking about adversity, and I had lost weight and all of that. Now I've lost even more weight, Caroline. Please,
Awesome.
50 pounds or more since we did that Speak Up series. And here we are on going and building the relationships. And it's been such a joy seeing your journey on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, and how you show up. You show up as a leader and you show up sharing that, you know what, it's not easy, it's difficult. And yet you embrace that with so much joy, letting us know that yes, it will be okay. Emerging from the cocoon and becoming that beautiful butterfly more and more. And Corey, your story too is from being a waiter. And now look at you. Oh my gosh, you are an inspiration to so many people. And you have this company called Schedule. And tell us a little bit about yourself. I do have your bio, but I love it when people really share about themselves before I could even share more. So please go ahead, Corey.
Well, perfect. And before that, with your permission, I'm going to talk about the big, huge elephant in the room. You lost 50 pounds. I gained it, but it's all on top of my head because they didn't let any, we couldn't go to the barbers here for a few months in Chicago. So that's what's going on here. And, but yeah, no. So first of all, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm a fan of the show and both of yours. But so I spent about 15 years of my adult life working in restaurants, kind of every station, primarily in service. And I realized that data wasn't being leveraged to schedule the shift workers properly, and there were on-call shifts that impacted our lives. And so I did the most silly thing anyone could ever do, and I started a technology company about 5 years ago. And I didn't know any acronyms other than SOS, and I don't think I knew what that stood for, but I sure didn't know what B2B was or what a CRM was. And I didn't know that we were a workforce management company. I just knew that data should be used to help schedule shift workers better. And today at Shedwell, we've got thousands of users. We're raising our second round of funding. We've got almost 30 full-time employees, and we're having a lot of fun. We've been seeing some adoption in a lot of industries that had not occurred to me as a waiter that thought data should be used to make my scheduling life a little bit easier and better. And so we're having a lot of fun. We're kind of in that scale mode right now. I brought on an amazing CEO because I've been called a lot of things in life, but I've never been called an amazing CEO. So Mike's great. I now get to play my position very well as the Chief Visionary Officer and Chairman of the Board.
That's excellent. You know what? What do you think? I gave myself a haircut. I've been doing that all throughout the COVID days. Kind of got the fade okay, I think, right?
I will drive to see you.
Caroline, please, please, please do tell us more about Try Global and all the wonderful things that you're doing. Even something about your personal life. Your son, he is your pride and joy. I see you beaming when you talk about him and have him in your videos. Please, please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
So, I work with people um, over the last, since 2000, I've been with Dell and HP, working with leadership in different, business lines, helping them move direction around mindset changes while the business has changed, consolidated, and several other things. But I think change for me really came when I lost my job from HP. And that was a really hard but a very critical turning point, because I think I really started to invest in looking within me and working on TIR, which is the Indian Renaissance Global, from the perspective of creating a business, and VIBA as a community. All these other, I think, all the other real things around my purpose in this lifetime have really started to emerge from 2014. It's been really hard. It's been um, a lot of labor, because I think that easy. It's easy to project, but I think reflecting it and being able to practice it is really really hard, and that's something that I'm continuing to understand for myself and for my clients. And yeah, I have an amazing son. He teaches me a lot. Matter of fact, these days he's teaching me airboxing. So we airbox together, and it's amazing bonding. And he is so much taller than me, wisdom wise. Yeah, life is good. Life is really, really good right now.
That's amazing. How old is he?
He's going to be 16 in November. I know that you have kids of your own. Alnur, I want to thank you for inviting me and inviting Corey on your show. I
Oh,
know that you are such an authentic person when you show up on LinkedIn. I love that you practice what you talk about and you speak from the heart. And I'm sure I speak for Corey when I say this, that we are just so honored to be on your show with you. I think there's a lot that we can learn from you.
oh my gosh. You know, today's leadership, and before we go into that, I would love for our viewers to please come and what they would like to learn from us. And, you know, when we talk about leadership, we have, Jeff from my mother, sorry, my brother from another mother is how we refer to each today he had posted the guru, shout out of the week, and he's the LinkedIn guru, and it was me, and it was just like, oh my gosh, I really so blessed that this platform, LinkedIn, has really given me the space, has given me the talking about being authentic and um, and it is vulnerable. Like we stand there so afraid, and that first step is the hardest, as you know, and in the middle it is so messy and sticky. I talk about climbing mountains, but carrying mountains, because back in 2010 I was over 380 pounds. And right now, I haven't actually gone on the scale because I look at my pictures and I go, oh my God, who is this, right? Um, and when we talk about all of this, the transformation and also the transformation that we're talking about, and uh, and some of the leaders that I really look at, if we look at New Zealand and what has happened over there, and how just showing up and those things that are happening over there. It's you look at it and you see, oh my gosh. And those are the same things that I see in both of you. Is you take leadership, but in a way. But the thing is that, oh, sorry, are we, you may be fading in and out. Can you hear me all clearly?
Yes,
I'm
you
able to
are
hear
coming in.
you.
You can, right?
You were
Uh,
coming in and out a bit for me.
okay. So I'll speak up. And that's the thing about leadership is that back then, when I started this journey, I didn't know anything about this. And people say, well, couldn't you know that it took you so much time to put on all of that weight? Why did you do something? Why are you, can you tell some people who are heavy? But the thing is that, we don't do these on purpose. Um, we, life happens and the lens that is going on. And, when that tragic event happened in Australia, sorry, in New Zealand, and how Jacinda didn't know what to do and she stood. And that is what I'm also saying about you, is that is what I see. So I would like to start my first question is that, why is leadership so much talked about? Why do you think this is, I would learn that from you, Caroline.
Okay, so I didn't quite catch the last part. Did you just ask me why is leadership so talked about?
Yes, yes.
So I really think that the theme around leadership is not a new one. I
Hmm.
think since age-old scriptures we see fine leaders doing a fine job, and then we see really poor leaders doing a really poor job with being able to build some context for people who look up to them. And the whole concept, but also the whole experience of leadership has changed in a really really big way. And I think if we have to look at maybe the last 20 odd years, and just because the generations have changed and evolved, the expectations around leadership have as well. If you look at a company like Zappos and their CEO Tony Hsieh, I read his book Delivering Happiness. He has a lot of underpinnings around spirituality in that book, although he doesn't really say it out loud. But what I loved about the culture, and he was awarded, Zappos, he was awarded for cultivating that culture, is that they have no managers. Everyone is their own leader. They show up each day and they get their work done. The only caveat is that once a week they have something like a project manager who shows up, and they have small groups where meetings go on. Oh, I like this format. Meetings go on, and they have to take ownership for what they have taken ownership for. And I think that really speaks to the evolving leadership experience right now. I think that the younger generations are not looking for authority. I think anything that they need to know, they can Google up. They don't need a human being to tell them about concepts on how to. I think that great leadership starts with self, which also means that being able to speak and then practice what you talk about is really important. We're all talking about authenticity. Maybe we have kicked that term around a bit much, but it is definitely relevant, and it is going to continue to grow more and more relevant in coming years, with so many large organizations that are actually dissolving from a cultural perspective, and the whole solopreneur entrepreneur mindset that's kind of gaining so much more relevance in the global landscape. I think leadership, self leadership especially, taking ownership for oneself, one's growth, being respectful, being kind, are some of the things that I believe, no matter who we are, we will have to practice these things.
So true. Thank you so much for that. And
Thank you.
no, you're welcome. Because, in times of what has COVID shown us is that we have to adapt, we have to pivot, we have to disrupt. We have to remain agile. And there are no answers that are even out there. The thing is that we don't know what's going to be happening. Yet we are able to, if we show up in our leadership saying that, I don't know the answers, but I am here, I am ready to learn, and I am being that servant leader, which is what I see a lot from what you are doing over here. And so my question to Corey is that, we can all say that we are the CEOs of our lives, right? And leadership, training, coaching is effective in the corporate world. But what's the value of having personal coach for these non-executives and non-leaders? What would you say about that, Corey?
So I think, very simply put, I think it's to get unblocked. And I do think that we're seeing more and more in executives and leadership, people that are letting their ego tell them that they don't need any unblocking, right? Or that they can do it all. We're seeing a lot of shortcomings there. We're seeing a lot of the innovators, really taking market share. Whereas you see other leaders that are coming, I think, with open hearts and just, to coin that same phrase of authenticity, they're saying, I don't have all the answers, but let's get this done. And they're looking for ways to collaborate, and they're looking for ways to really become part of something bigger than themselves. And I think from a leadership perspective, when you're trying to be part of something bigger than yourself, that translates into your sales cycle, that translates into your hiring process and your team. It translates into the PR and some of the accolades that you can get to really show that social proof. So I think it does all go into kind of the laying down of the ego, admitting that you have shortcomings, and you can't fix a shortcoming that you don't admit you have. So I really do think I'm seeing a lot of people just is there one definition of this? Is just asked definition of what, if that question was to me.
I really like that, and that's also showing up what Jeff is asking about right here, and he's asked this question to you, more emphasis on leadership rather than the situational leadership. What are we looking for over here?
I think, we are kind of moving in that direction with this conversation. And thank you for that question. Was it from Jeff? Jeff, thank you for that question. So I believe, there is probably a lot of assumption and, misunderstanding around the word servant. And then we put that together with the word leadership, and we're wondering how on earth can both those words coexist? Because, leadership, like we were talking about, has been viewed as something higher and, superior and in authority. And then all of a sudden, you're adding the prefix, if you will, with the word servant. But I think there is a lot of grace in stepping aside. I think that humility is probably a part of a deeper knowing that you don't, like Corey was saying, you don't have to have all the answers. And if you really want to build engagement, if you want to um, allow people to feel like they belong, because belongingness and community is really, really important, and it's going to continue to take precedence, is to let people lead. I think there's a lot of fear around failure. What if they don't do it right? Micromanaging. And on the flip side, many team members also view it as delegation is dirty laundry. I don't want to handle it. And therefore, being open to have a conversation with respect, with listening, I think are really important. And these are not just things at workplaces, they're relevant for families and closer relationships as well. So
Yeah.
if we were to view our workplaces as extensions of our first family and that culture, I think we can bring in a lot more of the family aspect to it as well.
Mhm. You've touched on all of these key points, and there is so much that is happening right now that we do not know about what we do not know about. And so, with that, how do you feel that the meaning of relationship leadership is evolving through the current paradigm, Caroline?
To the earlier point, I really feel that it's important for all of us, no matter what age we are, to practice a sort of flexibility, because I think that every generation is coming out with a different mindset and a different heart set. And, I recall this quotation. Most of the time, we don't remember what people say to us, but we do remember how we feel around them. And we all know that there are several times where, even without a person speaking, we're able to catch their energy, their vibe, their presence, you know. And kindness is that, being able to catch that vibe. So I really think in the emerging dynamic of everything that's happening, we have a very fractured system, which is being exposed for what it is, not just from a business perspective, but also from, holistically lifestyle perspective and the things that we're struggling with. And everything is an extension, right, from the way we see ourselves, the way we add value to our customers. And so I think that leadership is going to continue to be about being better at listening, asking qualitative questions, being able to, like the series I run, arms wide open, just keep your arms wide open, and, maybe look at work as work play instead of being so rigid. These are some things that I'm continuing to pay attention to and lean into, and it is looking pretty fine.
Funny you bring about play because Robert was my guest during Mental Health Month, and he brought energy. That's what he loves to do, and he does the tap and talk. So you press that, right? The thing about this is that he has so much energy, and he does the workplace play things. I think are losing that in the world because we are so afraid of what will people think. So my next question is to Corey. If with all, how would you distill the current state of leadership word? What would that be?
So you cut out for just a few moments. So I think you said down to
Corey.
one word. One
Yeah,
word.
what would the leadership be if you could distill it to one word?
So I would say right now the current climate and what I see in leadership right now in one word would be reactive. And I think that right most business experts and coaches would say that that's not the place to be. And I think when something happens like COVID, that's completely blindsides everyone, couldn't have been anticipated. Right, that's really when some of those preparedness and some of those how do we spring into action moments that really do showcase our weaknesses for what they are. But I think everybody's scrambling, everybody's trying to figure out how to recover lost revenue, how to recover, right? We're hearing a lot about customer loyalty and data as well in any industry from tourism to hospitality. And so I really do think that this is giving people kind of a reality check as to where they are. My organization and a lot that I talk to are going through all of their different emergency response programs and protocols. And right, I think this is the time that a lot of us realize that we weren't prepared for something like this. And I think a lot of the forward thinking leaders and leadership is, making sure that this doesn't happen again in the foreseeable future.
You bring about a valid point, and I do see that even though COVID has been really disruptive, but if we frame and look at some of the positives that have happened, we look at embracing of technology, we look at the Zoomers, the older folks who are we look at how people have banded together and brought about so much more in the workplace. We've seen collaboration, and you know what? Right now, collaboration is really showing up. As a matter of fact, this morning I had a meeting with one of the firms here in Calgary. They are Korean Life, and when we're looking at stuff that let's do this, I will do it my way. That doesn't work. And what works is that removing that ego, edging God out, I bring a lot of spirituality into this because I think that is a great thing. And if I offend people, I do apologize. The piece is that compassion, spirituality, and there, Rajiv is saying that,
Nice.
and being transparent and truly authentic in these times is the real leadership. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for that. And do we as leaders then say, as I started this conversation, that, I don't know the answers. Caroline, who then is responsible for leading when you don't know these answers?
All of us. I dream of a world filled with entrepreneurs. I dream of a world where we can all start to embrace ourselves without shame, guilt. I think there is a lot of conditioning around failure. There is a lot of conditioning around being less, being weak, not knowing. I dream of a world where all that is embraced and we can have, open conversations like children. And I just forgot what you asked me because I got so poetic out myself right now.
No, I'm sorry. I get so you know, I I have been called so many names, Caroline. I've been through so much abuse and all of that. I am a guy that wears his heart on his sleeve, and I do teach cognitive behavior therapy, living life to the full, which is an 8-week module. And I do have men in my class who are struggling. They're choking back their tears because we've been living in a world which has said that men do not cry. And the thing is that these tears are a natural thing. We all have those tears. And why is it that one particular gender is allowed to their emotions? Emotions are real. And we are choking and drowning in our tears. So when you start to get poor, you actually answer the question. And this is what I'm trying to say, that yes, as a guy, I cry. When I remove, the skin is the largest organ, and we all have all these different shades that make us who we are. But underneath, I, my blood is green. I'm not royalty. We all have red. And the thing is, our bones are still all the same, the white, right? And here is when we edge God out and we remove that ego and that vision that you're bringing forward, and the perfect guests for today, the first of the leadership series, is what you guys are talking about. And I couldn't thank you enough for showing up and telling us. So, Corey, what is that one thing you find yourself constantly trying to improve about yourself as an executive leader? Because it is about that growing and stepping up. What is that? Would you share with us?
So Caroline has been speaking for me for about 2.5 years since we met, and she already answered that question for me. At one point, I needed to just jump, but it's listening, and it's learning to listen better to my fans and followers around the world on social. It's about learning to listen to my employees. It's about learning to listen to my prospects and my customers, both existing and in our pipeline. And I really do think when we tie this back to servant leadership, I was a servant for 20 years, and I finally realized I didn't like being a servant in the castle. But I do think, to excel as a servant and to, have a quality of life when you're still a servant, the only way to do that is to listen, right? You need to listen to a half empty glass and come back with the tea and water without being told that you need to do it. You need to listen to a steak that's not being eaten because it's too red in the center without someone yelling and saying it's not mid well. You need to listen to somebody that doesn't want another $200 bottle of wine because they're trying to impress and can't afford it. So sometimes it's listening to the unspoken, the unseen. Sometimes it's just anticipation. One of the places I was kind of the top servant, but we were all certainly servants, taught the C's in kind of the service capacity being consolidation, circulation, and communication. So always keep it moving, always let it be known what's needed, and always be looking around to kind of just understand. So I think listening to emotions, listening to societal directions, listening to innovation, listening to those that aren't innovating. I think that's really the way that we as leaders kind of, continue to progress both individually and societally.
I want to add something to what Corey just shared. I think it's really, really important, because we look at leadership as like I personally, if that question, these questions are asked to me, I know that I instantly think of a person like a human being a leader. But I really, really think that we need to also rise up to understand some of the more systemic, unstated pain points that we are all going through, suffering at some level or the other. And that's the reason that these kind of conversations that are so heartening, being able to nourish, nurture, and cultivate community, and not just putting people together. I mean, being really intentional about it. Why are we coming together? For what purpose? What each one is looking for and what each one will bring to the table. Being able to address the elephant in the room. What are some of the fears that each of us have? We don't talk about these things because we are conditioned to believe it is wrong. But I think that we can be so much more relaxed and be ourselves when we address the elephant in the room, and we can just listen, like fully show up and listen and handhold one another. To me, I think that is an emerging leadership experience as well.
Wow, wow. Caroline, thank you. Corey, thank you. I am mindful it is 12:30 right now. I would appreciate the stage just a little longer to share your final words, and if there are any other questions from our viewers, Corey, I'm going to ask you this. When was the last time you cried?
Oh, if it wasn't today, it's because the day's not over. I cry every day.
Thank you. And the thing I asked you this
Aren't
is
you going to ask me?
no, because Caroline, there is another question that I have for you. Right? We talk about this that men don't. You you're an influencer. We see what kind of leverage you have on LinkedIn and all of that, right? You have shown that you took from where you were and where you're going, and so many times we don't see that. With Caroline, I do see that emotional side that is coming through. I don't mean that in a harmful way, Corey, but that is what I have been seeing from Caroline on her shares. And the thing is that what Robert, who is on our show right now, thank you for having the 5 boxes of Kleenex at your fingertips. Is that shared? Is that it takes braveness. It takes people ridiculing you because I remember that there was a time when I had finished my education, my diploma, and I was still working for a call center, making just $6 an hour. I could not really afford to put food on my table. I was, that money was going for rent. And I decided to go to university. At that time, I decided, okay, I'll go to work full time. And Robert is going to send you a box to you, Corey. You. How can he get a hold of you, Corey? Can you please share that with us? And so what I've done was I started applying henna. Okay. It was really up and coming, a trendy place here in Calgary back then. And we had religious leaders from my mosque that had walked up and they look at me and, there's this snickering going on. He turned to me and says, when are you studying vexing? And here I was sustaining myself because I was finally able to afford to buy textbooks. Before that, I was borrowing textbooks from the library to be able to study. So I had enough and I did something that was unthinkable. And I looked at him square in the face and I said, it's $200. And so he was in shock that I actually said that. In hindsight, I feel bad that I did say those things. I was putting my ego up because, it was finally I was able to support myself and not go to the food bank. There's nothing wrong with that because so many people have started to rely on that during the COVID times. So I think that too is the part of emergent leadership. What are your final words, Corey, and how can people get a hold of you?
Sure. Well, I guess my final words, and they've been right now. I think we need less division and more unity, and we really just need more love, and we need to stop worrying about what other people think. We don't need everyone to agree with everything that we agree with. We need to stop trying to get people to come around. We just need love, love, love. And I think that ties into listening. On LinkedIn, I'm active there, but always so much activity and commotion that I kind of laugh. LinkedIn's probably the worst place to try to get in touch with me. But I'm very easy by email. I'm Corey@shedwell.com. Here on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm active. Corey Connects is my hashtag, and I use that everywhere. So if anyone finds me anywhere but LinkedIn, I will accept you right away into my network and my family. If you message me, I'll message you right back. The same goes for LinkedIn, but if it takes me 3 months to get back to you, it's because I've got a 3 month backlog.
So is this at Corey Connects?
Yep.
Awesome. And your email again is Corey at
Shedwell.com.
shedwell.com.
You can't really read this.
I will add that over here. Caroline, what are your final words for us, please?
I am really out of words right now. I just want to thank you and all our viewers. I've been reading all the comments. I think it's spectacular to have a conversation and to be able to just feel into, we're in different parts of the world, all of us, right now. And we're having this conversation and we're feeling the same things. I think that is pretty amazing. That means that we're probably on the right track.
And it is midnight your time. Caroline, you have a book that's coming out. Please tell us the title and where can we get that?
So the book is in the process of being edited, but the name of the book is called Becoming You, Stories of Courage and Vulnerability. I have 6 other people from different parts of the world who have shared their stories around struggle, adversity, and becoming, and what it means to really submit to becoming. I'm very excited about it. I'm hoping that it should be out by the next month. Thank you for asking. That's so
You're
kind.
so welcome. And how can people get a hold of you? Where do you have a website as well?
Yeah, so I have a website, carolinefernandez.me, and then I'm on LinkedIn. And yeah, so those are most of the ways that you can reach me. My email address is caroline@tirglobal.com.
Is this the correct website? Perfect.
That's right.
I have added both their contact information on the description for this today's session.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. And, I thank you all so much for staying for so long, being here. And yes, Robert is right. Everything starts with a conversation, becoming true. And, that is so true. Can I tell you something? Joy Abdullah, I call him my brother as well. We say bye, actually. And he was on the show not too long ago. And he was also the one, and I knew I wanted you on the show, but he said, you must get Caroline and Corey. And how grateful I am that you both have come on. And why do I do this? Is that, reason for having chai conversations is that not only can we build community, but as a kid growing up, my aunt, the matriarch of the family, was a leader. And back in those days, she didn't marry because to raise 4 kids, her brother's kids, because her brother passed away. And how she did was by having chai conversations. And from there, building a community, that's exactly what you're doing.
Beautiful.
Build a community, we can not only look at creating that space, because right now we're looking at so much of the me, and listening is what you said, Corey, is how we are able to grow even more. So, what you both have done is the reason why I've invited you to have these conversations around career and life. And I would love it that you can both you can all reach out to both Caroline and Corey. Again, look at their info on the description. And for your any of your webinars around LinkedIn, around careers, around life skills, around cognitive behavior therapy, please do reach out. I would love to hold a keynotes as well, virtual. Until next Thursday, when we come back again to have more high conversations. Much love. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Love, love,
you.
love. And thank
Bye.
you. Yes. Bye bye.